I've been playing saxophone for 11, almost 12 years now, and I think anyone who's played an instrument for that long can tell you that at first you progress really quickly, and then gradually over time, the years start to blend together, you stop really tracking your progress, celebrating your wins, and even really improving that much. Well, it's a new year, and I want the time that I spend practicing and being a musician out in the world to be about connecting, exploring, expressing myself, and refining, not just about falling back on old habits. So today I'm going to go over what I plan on doing in the new year to make myself a better musician, and maybe some things that you can do too. This year is an interesting time in my journey because 2025 was a really big year for me musically. I went from having no gigs in over a year to being booked pretty much every weekend. I had never really been to any local jam sessions. I was doomed to playing second alto in every jazz band I was ever in, and then all of a sudden I was lead in my school's jazz ensemble. There were regular jams that I was going to every couple of weeks, and everything just felt like it was finally paying off. I played baritone saxophone for the first time, and I also finally took my first flute solo on stage in a concert. In addition to all of that, I started posting on social media again. All of those things put me way outside my comfort zone, and it was definitely a year of substantial growth. Now that I've settled kind of into this new stage of life, I want to make sure that I'm really using my time, my practice, and my mind to their best ability to really do how I want to in these roles. So if you're feeling similar to me, or you have just a goal to improve yourself as a musician, I'm going to give you some tips on what I'm doing and what you can do as well. Keep in mind that all of this is a work in progress, and I'm posting here mostly to keep myself accountable, but also to encourage other people. These first two tips are all about routine, planning, and structure. Number one is practice at the same time every day when you can. You've probably heard this 100 times, but for me, it especially rings true. Being a student, I find that practicing in the mornings is really the best time. If I can get it knocked out, I feel better about myself. I already have maybe at least an hour sunk into my practice, and I don't have to worry about mustering up the courage or the motivation or just dragging myself out of the mud after a long day of working or school in order to go back into the practice room and do some more. If you find that there's the most practical time of day for you to practice, try to make sure you set that aside if you can. If you can make practicing around the same time a routine, then you don't have to weigh all the priorities in your head when you're choosing to practice. You just know that you do this thing at a certain time. It's like going to the gym or starting any big habit like that. You always do it at a certain time of day. You don't have to think about it. You just put on your shoes and go. Number two is practice routines and planning. You can have a routine time of day that you practice, but it's also important to consider what you're practicing during that time. I have a little bit of a unique take on this and a unique experience with it as someone who has unmedicated ADHD. I think it's very important to have a couple of different, either vague ways of planning your practice in your arsenal, or have a couple of routines that you can choose from, because there's always going to be a point where you get stuck in the monotony of something, or you get really bored with whatever routine you're doing and try to rebel against that and just mess around and not really get anything done. So what I found that helps me the most, and what I'm going to try to stick to going forward, is having a vague outline of what I want to do, say with an hour long chunk of time. So maybe start with 15 to 20 minutes of fundamentals, maybe work on a major piece or something in an ensemble or a lesson or for a gig that I need to learn, and then at the end go into improvisation practice or some sight reading practice. And this applies very uniquely to whatever your skill set is, maybe what genre you've been playing, or what kind of work that you need to get ready for. So once you have a vague outline of what you generally want to hit in your average practice session, then you can, before you practice, maybe every time or a week in advance, if you want to plan more in advance, write down the specific bullet points that you want to hit then. Maybe there is a very specific piece that you know you need to learn before this rehearsal, or before you play this show, or just for yourself. You write, maybe I'll practice that for 30 minutes on this day. I'll practice these scales before then, and then I'll work on this after. So I find that kind of planning more in the short term helps me, and still having these overarching goals, of course, that I want to strive for, but more short-term planning I found easier to stick to and kind of leads to less guilt when I don't achieve those goals. So in case that was confusing at all, basically what I'm trying to do is create a general outline of what I want to work on every day, and then before each practice session, writing down the specific to-do list. Number three is actively listening to new music. I can get really stuck on a specific song, an album, or an artist and kind of not want to branch out for a while. But I've noticed that this style of listening does really impact my playing, and often in a negative way. It's only natural to have favorites and have things that you always want to go back to, but sometimes expanding those horizons and engaging your active listening muscles can really help with your own playing, especially when it comes to developing your sound concept of your whole instrument and your playing style, as well as your improvisation style, and getting some of that vocabulary in your mind. I think it's really worthwhile to check out some new albums and some new artists, or even just check out some things that you haven't heard that are more underground from the artists that you already know and love. This can be kind of in the passing moments of your life, in the car, on a walk, but I also encourage you to take time before or after a practice session, or maybe when you're winding down for the night, just to sit and listen to some music. I did this with Miles Davis's Kind of Blue, and also the Bill Evans Trio Waltz for Debbie album. It was around my senior year of high school, and both of those albums have a really special place in my heart because I would just sit with them and like listen to them for half an hour or more. It can be incredibly relaxing, and it'll also help break up the stimulation from short form content or a busy life and just fully let your brain hone in on something that you are intentionally feeding it. There are also great live shows locally that I want to take advantage of. I've been incredibly lucky just in these past few years to see some of my heroes for less than the cost of a pizza delivery, or sometimes even free. It's incredible to see how each musician's sound fills the room, how they perform, how they conduct themselves. That's something that you don't really get when you're just listening over headphones, and it can also inform a lot of how you operate as a performer and a musician. Seeing affordable live shows can be an incredible way to discover new artists or to discover things you love about artists you're already familiar with. Number 4, and I know this one is ironic because I'm making a YouTube video, but it is going analog / using technology for good. I'll be the first to say I am entirely addicted to my phone and the internet. It's actually a huge problem. I plan on making a whole video about this and how I believe technology is affecting musicians and creatives, but for now I'll leave it pretty short. If you have similar problems to me, there are a couple swaps you can make in the practice room that can really improve this. And these are my two. First, I swap my phone metronome for a digital, or maybe if you even have a mechanical metronome. When I'm using this, if I'm playing on a particularly loud mouthpiece or if I'm practicing a really loud piece, I can plug headphones into it and listen to it directly. It also has the added benefit when I do that. I have specific earbuds that have earplugs built into them, so it also protects my hearing. I like to use this digital stopwatch instead of the app on my phone, and then keep both of my devices, my iPad, my phone, anything like that, turned off and in the other room. Sometimes I'll bring them back for the end of the practice session if I need to do some sight reading or playing with a backing track, because technology can be a very helpful tool, but I have found that I personally am just so addicted that I can't even have them in the same room. When I'll try to practice with my devices in the same room, I'll either get distracted when I'm trying to look for something music related and end up scrolling or watching another YouTube video, or I'll just end up draining my mental resources trying to resist doing that the entire time. So I'm really trying to hold myself accountable to actually keeping those devices off and out of the room for the majority of my practice when I can. And these two little swaps can really help with that. And number 5, you've already done almost all the work, so this part is about celebrating. It is recording progress and celebrating wins. It can be really easy to forget how far I've come just in this past year, but especially over the whole past 11 years. Luckily, I have old videos that I can look back on, but I wish I had more. So I encourage you to document your progress. Record videos, voice memos, you can post it or just keep it for yourself. If, like me, you make those daily lists of things you want to do in a practice session, check them off and let yourself feel good about checking off even the little things, like 10 minutes of work on overtones or 10 minutes of work on long tones or something. That's something to be celebrated. If you hit a really big milestone, maybe go out with friends to celebrate. Sometimes just thinking about all the cool things you've done can be its own reward. I know it is for me. Especially when things start feeling really monotonous and repetitive, it's what can keep you going. I'm always looking for new tips, so leave what you're working on in the comments. Have a great day, and happy practicing.